Welcome back to the Old Photo Vault channel. The One Without a Stone. Cedar Grove Cemetery, Ohio. Autumn, 1912. It looked like an ordinary Sunday photograph, the kind taken after chores were finished, when the light went soft and forgiving. Thomas Hale stands between the graves with his sleeves rolled and his hat off, as if pausing from tending the family plot. The stones are neat, the path clean, the trees patient. Only later does the shape beside him begin to trouble the eye. It has the pale outline of a woman, thin as breath, standing where no marker bears a name. Thomas never mentioned her, though his wife, Eleanor, died young and without a stone when money ran short in 1908. The longer you look, the more familiar she feels, like someone remembered incorrectly. The figure leans slightly toward Thomas, almost companionable. He never turns, but the photograph keeps her there, quietly insisting she was not finished standing beside him. The last bed, St. Agnes Home, Massachusetts. Winter, 1910. The photograph was taken to remember how peaceful he looked. Henry Caldwell lies arranged with care, hands folded as his wife always insisted, sheets tucked tight to keep out drafts that no longer mattered. The room is modest, clean, almost gentle. Someone has placed flowers near the window, though it is too cold for them to last. At first glance, nothing feels wrong. Then the shadow near the foot of the bed draws the eye. It has weight, as if someone is sitting where no chair stands, shoulders bent forward in a familiar way. Henry was known for watching over others, even when illness thinned him to silence. Nurses said he apologized for ringing the bell. The shadow never reaches for him, never touches the sheets. It only remains, patient and observant. When the photograph was developed, his wife said it looked like Henry had already risen, just enough to stay and make sure everyone else was all right. The Guest Behind the Glass, Savoy Hotel Dining Room, London. Spring, 1926. It was meant to be a pleasant souvenir. A woman seated neatly at a small table before her tea had gone cold. Margaret Whitcomb sits straight-backed, smiling as she always did for photographs, with the silver teapot centered carefully in front of her. The room behind the glass cabinet is busy with ordinary things. Jars, plates, leafy plants pressing toward the light. Nothing about the moment seems unusual. Only later does the second face appear, faint and pale, hovering just over Margaret's shoulder inside the reflection. It looks unfinished, as if still deciding how to be seen. Margaret had written that she hated dining alone after her sister Eleanor died the year before, though she insisted she was managing. The face does not smile. It waits, patient and close. When the photograph was returned from development, Margaret said softly that at least someone had remembered to join her for tea. The Fifth Embrace, Maple Street Living Room, Illinois. Summer, 1978. It was taken after dinner, when the furniture had been pushed back and everyone was a little warm from laughing. 4 young people stand in pairs, arms wrapped tight, smiling with the careless certainty that nothing important has been lost yet. The carpet is worn, the lamp glows too yellow. The macrame divider hums with quiet fashion. At first, the photograph feels full. Then the shape on the wall begins to insist on itself. A 5th figure lingers between them, pale and tall, its outline soft as breath on glass. No one remembers anyone standing there. Later, they would say the house always felt crowded, even when it was empty. Years after this picture, they spoke of a sister who never made it past childhood, whose name was used less and less until it disappeared from conversation. The figure does not reach for them. It only stays close, as if waiting for someone to remember there was room for one more. The Third Man at the Counter, Miller's General Store, Kansas. Autumn, 1934. The photograph was taken during a slow afternoon, when the shelves were full, but money was scarce. 2 men lean against the counter, grinning for the camera, their sleeves rolled, boots dusty from the road. Sale banners hang overhead with stubborn optimism. Everything about the scene feels ordinary, even cheerful. Only later does the blur between them begin to bother those who look closely. It has the shape of a man standing too still. His outline softened as if he arrived late to the moment. No one remembered him at the counter that day. The shopkeeper said there had once been a third clerk, a quiet fellow laid off when the depression deepened, who stopped coming by after a winter illness. The blur seems to lean in, listening, sharing the joke without speaking. The two men never glance his way, but the photograph keeps him there, lingering in the work he was never quite finished leaving behind. The song she didn't finish. Cedar Ridge Bedroom, Oregon. Autumn, 1974. It was an ordinary afternoon photo, taken to capture how grown-up she suddenly looked. Linda Foster stands by the wood-paneled wall, one hand on her hip, smiling off to the side as if someone has just called her name. Her posters are still pinned behind her. Songs she played too loudly, lyrics she knew by heart. The room smells faintly of dust and old paper. At first, the picture feels warm, almost proud. Then the lighter shape near the curtain begins to settle into place. It looks like a second outline, thinner, paler, standing just behind her shoulder, where no mirror should reflect anyone else. Linda had talked often about leaving, about singing somewhere farther away. She never did. Years later, her mother noticed the shape still watching from the photograph, as if waiting for the next verse to begin. Linda's smile never changes, but the room seems to listen, quietly, for a voice that never came back to finish the song. The one, waiting by the shed. Hawthorne Lane backyard, England. Spring, 1932. It was meant to mark a small achievement. Nothing more. Arthur Bell stands in his best suit, hands relaxed, smiling at the camera, as if the future were already settled. The garden is tidy, the tree full, the shed newly painted. Everything suggests a life moving forward in sensible steps. Only later does the smaller figure near the shed begin to emerge. It is a child's shape, faint and poorly fixed, as though the photograph could not decide whether to keep it. Arthur had a younger brother, Thomas, who died of fever before school age, spoken of rarely and always, in past tense. No one expected him here. The figure does not wave or call out. It simply waits, close to the place where tools were kept and games once paused. Arthur never turns around, but the photograph remembers what the family learned to leave behind, and it refuses to let the garden be empty of him. The fog that knew his name. Near Ypres, Belgium. Winter, 1916. The photograph was taken during a lull, when the road looked almost peaceful and the air held its breath. Captain William Harrow stands alone, coat buttoned high, pipe set firmly as if routine could keep the world steady. The trees behind him dissolve into mist, their shapes unsure, like thoughts left unfinished. At first, the fog seems ordinary, a common inconvenience of winter. Then it thickens around his legs, rising with a familiarity that feels deliberate. There are softer outlines within it, hints of shoulders, a bowed head, places where faces almost form and then retreat. William had written home about men who vanished quietly, swallowed by smoke and weather before anyone could call their names. He never mentioned fearing the same. The fog does not touch him, yet it gathers close, patient and attentive. The photograph keeps him standing there, already halfway remembered, as though the mist had come not to hide him, but to recognize him before anyone else could. The dog. He refused to leave. Rosewood Lane, New Jersey, summer 1921. The photograph was meant to be cheerful, something to send to relatives who worried too much. Samuel Reed stands on the garden path in his Sunday suit, holding his small white dog like a prize, smiling with restrained pride. The fence runs straight. The flowers are obedient. The afternoon looks harmless. Only later does the smudge beside him begin to trouble the eye. It gathers at his left side, thin and human-shaped, as if someone were standing just out of patience with being seen. Samuel's wife had died the winter before, after insisting the dog be kept close at night. Neighbors said he still spoke to her while walking the path. The shape does not touch him, yet it leans in, close to where an arm might rest. The dog looks directly into it. Samuel keeps smiling for the camera, unaware that the photograph has chosen to remember who still walks with him when he thinks he is alone. The record that was never played. Magnolia Drive bedroom, Florida. Summer, 1986. The photograph was taken to celebrate something small and proud. Denise Alvarez stands carefully posed, holding a little trophy, her white outfit pressed smooth, her smile practiced but sincere. The curtains are drawn just enough to keep out the heat. Flowers sit arranged beside a new record player, its lid open, waiting. The room feels orderly, hopeful. Only later does the shape inside the record player begin to trouble anyone who looks too long. In the dark gloss of the lid, a pale figure appears, seated as if listening, its head tilted in a familiar way. Denise's father had loved music, had promised to teach her his favorite songs before dying suddenly the year before. She said she still heard him humming at night. The figure does not move the needle. It only waits, patient and close, as if afraid that if the music starts, it might finally have to leave the room it never finished listening in. The one who still knows the recipe. Willow Creek Farmhouse Kitchen, Iowa. Late summer, 1959. It was an ordinary afternoon, caught between canning season and supper. The two women stand where they always did, one at the sink, one at the stove, moving by habit more than thought. The window is open to green light and the sound of insects. Nothing feels posed. Only later does the third figure begin to trouble the eye. In the glass, behind the jars and small kept things, a woman appears who is not in the room. Her shape thin and careful, as if afraid of interrupting. She stands exactly where their mother once stood, watching without speaking, correcting nothing. After she died, they said cooking became harder, though the recipes were written down. The reflection does not reach for the spoons or the pot. It only watches, patient and exact, as if making sure they remember. And when the photograph is held too long, the kitchen feels warmer, like someone has just stepped back from the window, satisfied the meal will turn out fine. The small one who stayed. Oak Hollow Cemetery, Missouri. Autumn, 1910. It appears to be a simple photograph of mourning, taken for family record. Margaret Sparks stands beside the headstone, smoothing its top with her gloved hand, as if dust alone were the trouble. The grass is thin, the markers uneven. The day quiet enough to hear breathing. The stone bears a child's name, dates too close together to linger on. At first, nothing else seems present. Then the pale shape near the grave begins to separate itself from the light. It is child-sized, unfinished, standing where the ground dips slightly, as if weight still mattered. Margaret never looked that way. She had already learned not to. Neighbors said she visited often, speaking softly, never staying long. The figure does not reach for her skirt or cry out. It only waits, patient and close, as though the photograph captured what Margaret felt but could not bear to see. That some children do not leave when buried, but remain nearby, learning how to be remembered. The third chair wasn't empty. Training grounds near Aldershot, England, spring, 1915. It was taken before they left, when uniforms were still clean and the ground felt solid underfoot. Edward Collins and James Mercer sit straight-backed on wooden chairs, caps set just right, faces arranged into the calm seriousness they practiced for the camera. The trees behind them are tangled but harmless, the kind of place where nothing dramatic ever seemed to happen. At first glance, it is a photograph of two men waiting. Only later does the pale shape between their knees begin to assert itself. It rises faintly from the dirt, the suggestion of a third presence seated too low, as if the chair had been forgotten, but the habit of sitting remained. Edward and James had trained with another man, quiet and dependable, who fell ill the week before departure. They never spoke of him again. The shape does not look at the camera. It looks at them, settled and patient, as though still waiting for orders that never came. The doll that stayed awake. Elmwood Boarding House, Ohio. Winter, 1954. It was taken on a quiet evening, after homework, before the light was turned low. Caroline sits on the narrow bed, careful with her posture, pretending she is older than she feels. The sheet is smooth, the wall bare, the room arranged to look temporary. Behind her, the doll rests where it has always been placed, propped neatly against the pillow. Nothing seems unsettled. Only later does the space beside the doll begin to feel crowded. Its stitched smile appears slightly turned, as if reacting to something Caroline cannot see. She had arrived at the boarding house alone that winter. Her parents delayed longer than promised. Letters came less often. The doll never moved from the bed, though Caroline swore she left it on the chair each morning. In the photograph, Caroline leans subtly away from it, as if making room for someone who preferred to stay awake after the lights were out. The one who didn't clock out. Black Hollow Mine, West Virginia. Winter, 1937. It looks like a routine shift photograph, taken before the lamps were turned low and the chains unhooked. 7 men stand close together, boots caked with dust, lunch pails heavy in their hands. They smile the way men do when the work is hard but familiar. The mine timbers press in behind them, steady and dark. At first, the cracks in the photograph seem like age alone. Then, the shape near the chain begins to settle into focus. It is smaller than the others. No helmet, no lamp. Standing where no man is listed on the payroll, the miners never mentioned him. Though records show a boy hired briefly during a lean winter, sent down for errands and never officially dismissed. The figure does not reach for a pail or the chain. It only stands where the shift should end. The men look forward, ready to leave. The photograph keeps what the mine refused to release. The drink no one finished. The Combination Saloon, Nevada Territory. Winter, 1898. It looks like a slow night caught by accident. The kind that smelled of dust and cheap whiskey. Men lean where they always did. Hats tipped, coats heavy. The bar lined neatly with bottles that promised relief. The sign on the wall is hand-painted and confident, as if naming the place could keep it standing. At first, everyone seems accounted for. Then the space in front of the counter begins to feel occupied. A pale figure settles into the blur between stools, not quite seated, not quite standing, its outline broken by scratches in the print. No one looks at it. The bartender's hands are busy, the men's faces turned elsewhere. Old stories said a gambler collapsed here one winter, card still pinched between his fingers, never claimed by anyone. The figure does not reach for a glass. It only waits at the bar, patient as the dust, as if certain the house remembers who never made it home. The bride who would not sit alone. Montclair Portrait Studio, New Jersey. Spring, 1894. It was meant to be a formal wedding portrait, the kind displayed in parlors for decades. Edwin Hartwell stands with practiced ease, one hand resting lightly near his wife's shoulder, his expression calm and composed. Clara sits stiffly in her dark dress, lace arranged with care, her bouquet heavy in her lap. Everything about the scene suggests permanence. Only later does the pale shape behind them begin to assert itself. It hovers near Clara's chair, faint and incomplete, as if someone rose too soon and never fully left the frame. Clara had lost her first fiancé to influenza the winter before, a fact mentioned less often as the new marriage settled in. In the photograph, she does not lean into Edwin. Her eyes seem fixed just past him, attentive, listening. The shape does not intrude. It only stands close, where a promise once rested, quietly insisting that some vows are not undone simply because another ceremony took their place. The space between the flowers, St. Mary's Churchyard, Kent, spring, 1919. It was taken to mark a return, a brief pause before ordinary life resumed. Two soldiers stand at the edges, uniforms pressed, boots polished for the day, while the women between them hold bouquets meant to look hopeful rather than careful. Hats sit straight. Smiles are practiced. The war is meant to be finished here. At first, the photograph feels balanced, symmetrical, complete. Only after does the space between the flowers begin to feel occupied. There is a faint narrowing of light, a soft blur that seems to lean inward, as if another body once stood where the ribbons cross. They had lost a brother in the final months, his letters arriving after his name was already carved in stone. No one spoke of him during the picture. The women keep their hands steady, but their eyes seem fixed on that small, empty place. The photograph does not fill it. It simply remembers that not everyone who came home could be made visible again. The rider who wasn't counted. High Plains, Homestead, Wyoming. Late spring, 1907. It looks like a proud moment, taken after the chores were finished and the fence repaired. Abigail Turner sits tall in the saddle, reins loose in her gloved hands, her horse patient beneath her. The split rail fence runs clean and even, the land wide enough to forgive mistakes. Everything feels sturdy and earned. Only later does the shape beneath her begin to trouble the eye. Just behind the horse's shoulder, a pale figure seems to stand where no shadow should fall, small and upright, as if learning to balance. Abigail had buried her first child the winter before, a brief illness, a name used only once afterward. She returned to riding early, saying the horse needed her steady. The figure does not cling or cry out. It simply keeps pace, close to the warmth of the animal. Abigail looks ahead, unaware that the photograph has kept what she taught herself to ride past. That some losses follow quietly, learning the shape of your days until you forget they were never meant to be there. If you look closely enough, these photographs never really end. They just wait for someone to notice what was left behind. Tell us what you saw, and whether any image stayed with you longer than it should. Like, subscribe, and share this video if you believe some memories don't fade. They linger quietly in the frame.